What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another episode of Grey Man Operations. Today we're going to be taking a look at the TR-1 upgrade flat performance trigger for Glock, particularly the Glock 19 Gen 4, but you do get them for different generations. Those of you who follow the channel for a while will know I've been running the TR-1 upgrade crocodile trigger on my Glock, and I've ran for a few years with great success. I've actually had no issue and quite enjoyed using the trigger. So when the guys from Belva Tactical reached out to me and said, do you want to try the flat performance trigger kit, I was more than excited to do so, especially since I've been running a test on this new closed emitter optic. If you are a patron, what are your thoughts of me giving away one of these closed emitter optics to one of you patrons? If you want to join patrons, the first link in the video description below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook or Instagram, it's the first comment. I'm strongly considering giving away one of these red dots with the mount and everything on patrons, so let me know if you guys are keen for that. Now, the TR-1 flat performance trigger kit is just that. It is a complete trigger kit. You get a assembly and disassembly tool. You get a dot connector, which is this connector right here. This is a 2.9 to 3.5 pound connector. You also get a minus connector, which is the one in the gun. That is a 2.2 to 2.7 pound connector, and we'll talk about that trigger weight in a second. You get an aluminium trigger shoe with aluminium trigger safety. This is matte black, and it's sexy. We all know that in real life how something looks is half the battle won, right? That's a bloody good looking trigger right there. Then you get a modified Glock performance trigger housing with ejector, and you get a TR-1 performance laser engraved cover plate. And if you're using this on a Glock 19 Gen 4 or Gen 3, you have to use the cover plate. You then also get an improved firing pin safety. This is polished and angled for smoothness. I haven't installed this because I have an improved firing pin safety, and it's just how I like it, so I'm not going to fudge with that. And then you get this adjustment tool, which you can use to modify or adjust the reset, which has a inbuilt reset adjustment screw, so you can adjust how the trigger resets. I found mine to be perfect out of the box. Now, guys, when it comes to a trigger this light, the reality is 2.2 to 2.5 to 3.2 pounds, our fingers can't really feel those things, right? We just know whether something is light or heavy, okay? There is a very discernible wall, but the travel is short. Have a look at this. Wall, off, wall, off, wall. Now, the amount of pressure required to get to the wall is very similar to the amount of pressure required to break through the wall. Okay? And then you get a very nice reset. I'm going to go as slowly as possible so I can show you where it resets. Right there. Now, the flat-faced trigger generally allows for more uniform pressure on the trigger. So when you pull through it, you get more surface area on the pad of your finger, theoretically giving you more control. Now, this has to be true because flat-face triggers are generally considered the performance trigger. I'm just using this Canix trigger to show you what a flat-face trigger is. I'm not sure if that black trigger is coming up well on camera, but it's flat versus a curved trigger. Okay, so flat-face triggers definitely have to give you some kind of performance advantage because everyone who is anyone in the gun industry runs it. Now, the question is this trigger EDCable? And the best way I can answer it is as follows. If you are concerned that you're going to negligently discharge your firearm, then that is a training problem, not an equipment problem. Is it something I would recommend for beginners? Absolutely not. Listen, you are going to have to put in a ton of dry fire and a ton of live fire practice to get used to this trigger because it is a massive departure from Glock standard trigger. I would recommend you firing single shots until you understand the trigger, then firing multiple shots to get a better feeling of the trigger, doing it all from concealment, running one reload, one drills, and just making sure that you are familiar with the mechanics and the feel of the trigger. That said, if you do put in the practice, there's definitely an advantage to be gained from a performance trigger like this. It does feel better to shoot. People often ask me, what are my thoughts on these trigger upgrades? And I always say, well, it's very personal, but I'm not going back. I'm not switching this out to my original Glock trigger as soon as review is done. This is now my, as far as I'm concerned, my standard Glock trigger, because I'll tell you what, once you get used to it, it's bloody brilliant. Now, the nice thing of dry firing, if you do dry fire often, is this trigger resets. So if I do, you see how it comes forward again? So you can practice multiple shots, and you do feel a wall right there, even when you have effectively broken the shot. Also, something that I do that might be different. Now, guys, man, I'm not an instructor, okay? So don't listen to me here. Listen to what your instructor says. A lot of people teach, and I've got nothing against this. I just do it slightly differently, especially in situations like this. When you present your firearm, and I used to do this, by the way, so you're not wrong for doing it. And I'm not someone who can tell you what's right or wrong. So don't kill me in the comments, okay? Just work with me here. Be mature. When you present, at the apex of your presentation, you should be, look at my finger, on the wall. You see that? That's the wall. On the wall. And then when you're ready, you break the shot. I do it a little differently. Ever since I've started training with the guys from concealment training, I've just found this to be the best, because when I train with concealment training, I'm shooting fast. I've found that when I present out, my fingers on the trigger, at the apex of my draw stroke, when I'm ready to squeeze the trigger, I pull consistently right through the trigger. I'll do that again. Look at this finger. So finger on the trigger. Okay, so my trigger finger, right? Wall, off the wall. Let's see if I can get it in focus. Wall, off the wall. Wall, off the wall. So the way I train now is my fingers on the trigger, but not on the wall. When I'm ready to shoot, I pull right through the trigger with consistent pressure. What I discovered I was doing, and perhaps a trigger with longer trigger travel can explain better, is when I was going to the apex of my trigger on the wall of my trigger at the apex of my draw stroke, to break the shot, I would give it a yank, because I knew that I had to put more pressure on it to break through that wall. Whereas now I present out and I'm ready to shoot. It's one consistent trigger pull all the way from front, all the way to the back. Now, what does that mean? That means I never have a negligent discharge of the firearm, because I'm not squeezing the trigger on my presentation. I'm just touching, my fingers just resting on the trigger. I'm not saying it's the right way to do things, okay? I'm simply saying it's how I found that I get maximum performance. Maybe with training and evolution it changes, but my mind says the body mechanics of that makes sense, to pull through the entire trigger with one constant pull, as opposed to reaching a wall and then having to press the trigger at the apex of the trigger, at the apex of your draw, which is generally what's going to cause that, because you are over pressing the trigger because you're trying to break through a perceived or a real wall with more energy than you feel you need to. So for me, I just go from the apex of my draw, I go right through the trigger in one smooth motion, and I just find that works exceptionally. And it works really well in this, with something like this as well, because it is considerably lighter. Like I said in the beginning, the amount of trigger weight to get from here to here is very similar to the amount of trigger weight to get from here to there. So bear that in mind. Having said that, it's a bloody nice trigger. Okay, if you're looking for something, if you're experienced, if you go shoot a lot and you're at the point where you're at the plateau, you've got the gear, and you're like, man, I just feel like I'm not getting any better. I'm as good as I can be, and you've done courses and you've gone to performance training, and you want to get something that will give you that little bit of an edge, definitely take a look at upgrading a trigger. And I would go so far to say this trigger upgrade kit, for what you get, is definitely something worth looking into. I'm a huge fan of upgrades. I believe that most firearms, especially Glock, come out as very rudimentary base platforms for anybody to run. And I believe with upgrades, you get to fine-tune that gun to your capabilities to really maximize your performance. More I would say Glock more than any other gun is that type of platform. They're almost saying to you, here's a base platform that'll work for everyone. Now upgrade to make it work best for you. The TR-1 upgrade flat performance 3 kit is definitely something that will stay in my Glock. I appreciate upgrades like this that do definitely make a difference. I would encourage you, if you are going to look at something like this or any kind of trigger upgrade, you have to put in the hours on the range and in dry firing because it's going to feel different. If you are someone who's still a bit skittish, if you are someone who's a bit tense when you shoot, you know, give yourself time to build more experience. And once you are a bit more experienced, then start looking at trigger upgrades like this. Are they necessary to shoot well? No. Do they help with, once you've reached a certain level, to just give you a little bit of a kick? Absolutely they do. Otherwise, they simply wouldn't exist. This will live inside of my Glock. I'm not taking it out of my Glock after this. I'm very happy with the trigger, and I'm actually more than happy to carry that gun like that. But that is a training evolution, as I said. As you've seen through this video, I've put a literal ton of rounds through my firearm, and I will tell you in the beginning, it did take getting used to. So take your time, build confidence, and it'll definitely help, and if not match, slightly improve your performance. At the end of the day, guys, training is everything. Gear is supplementary, but good gear can give you a bit of an edge. That's it, guys. I will see you soon. To all the guys who saw me at the Canik Day today, I really appreciate you guys coming out to meet me. It was great. Canik had an awesome event. We got to shoot some really cool Canics, and in a month's time we are going to be giving away a Canik on the channel again, our second Canik we're giving away. So definitely join up, especially join up on Patreon if you guys want in on that. That's it, guys. I'll see you soon for another review. Have a good week. Be safe, train hard. Cheers. God bless.